we've posed a question this morning. It's kind of a post-mortem. Where do we go from here? Throughout the balance of the campaign, I argued that this was not the best plan. I'm not opposed to every plan. I'm not opposed to, changing the state of affairs in education in District 1. I was vehemently and passionately opposed to property tax increases being the revenue generator that I thought was going to not just harm the primary residents nor the second homeowner, but the business person. And I said before we went to the break, one thing I think this community needs to take very seriously is how do we increase the value of a meal? Well, the way you increase the value of a meal is to create vibrancy and velocity in your economy. Well, that's not the government's role. Okay, let me ask you this, Reb. We always argue that the private sector and government need to kind of stay out of one another's business. But you accept the reality that they can't. I mean, they can't be mutually exclusive of one another. They've got to interact. We got to have taxes to educate people, to build roads, to provide public safety. And business has to share in that burden. There is no doubt about that. And businesses are owned by what? Robots? No, they're owned by people who normally live in a primary home and have a business they go to. So when I say let's increase the value of a meal, what does that mean? Well, I'll give an example. Throughout this referendum debate, I was told by people on the yes side, very sincere people, very good people, very decent people I respect, that they did this in Lexington. They did this in Horry. They did this in Charleston. They did this in Greenville. To which I responded, do you have any idea what a meal of taxes generate in Florence County? No. Well, of course you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't compare it to Charleston and Horry County. A meal in Florence County, and don't quote me on these numbers, but I know I'm pretty close, is less than $500,000. It's probably somewhere around $480,000. We're at about a 97% collection rate. So let's say a meal in Florence generates $450,000. In Horry County, it's about a $1.8 million. In Charleston, it's nearly $3 million. That's absurd for a southern, closed-minded, bigoted, racist state to have a tax base in a county that generates nearly $3 million per meal. Greenville is about $2 million. So when you look at what I call the big three, and they're very different, but they're much the same in that they generate enormous amounts of revenue. You've got Horry, you've got Charleston, and you got Greenville. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this. I know Horry's this example. Horry County is the largest landmass county east of the Mississippi. Horry County is the fastest growing county, probably third fastest growing county in America. They'll argue they're first. Las Vegas is still growing a little faster. And if I'm not mistaken, Salt Lake City, Utah is a faster growing county, the county that consists and includes Salt Lake City. But let's say Horry County, because here's where I'm headed. Horry County is the largest landmass county in South Carolina, the largest east of the Mississippi, one of the fastest growing counties in America. We're safe to say that. Guess how many school districts Horry County has? One. They have a lot of principals, have a lot of schools. I don't know how many schools they've got, but it's grown. So Horry County grows by 48 new people a day. And they're able to manage with one school district. To me, that's sufficient. That's effective. That is being good stewards and not allowing duplicity of positions to incorporate itself into the public sector. Some of what Ben was talking about. So if Horry County can run a huge county with an enormous budget with one school district, why can't Florence? We're one of 15 counties who do not have a consolidated school district. So when you ask the public for $198 million, my first answer is, how good of stewards are with the money you're getting now? Why do we have 5 school districts? That would be my first comment. Why do we have 5 superintendents in a county the size of Florence and a budget the size of Florence? No good answer. Well, it's just always been that way. Well, that's a lousy answer. You got to be creative. You got to be innovative. You got to be entrepreneurial. You got to figure out a way to make the school district better and more efficient. And I grew up in Hannah-Pamplico. Guess what? Hannah-Pamplico doesn't need a superintendent. Forgive me, whoever that superintendent is. Hannah-Pamplico needs a principal and an administrative staff to transact the daily duties of that school district. Johnsonville, we're dealing with a matter of economics. Everybody wants everything. And in public sector life, for a long time, guess what? They've pretty much gotten it. And we're dealing with some economic realities now that are going to be hard to digest. But I think you've got to deal with, I mean, Ben was talking about competition. I think we need more charter schools. I think we need vouchers. I think we need tax credit scholarships. I think we need anything to instill competition in the marketplace of education, because today, by and large, you've got a monopoly. And people are idiots only for so long. Sooner or later, and this is what I've argued, and this is much bigger and broader and macro than an election we had yesterday and last night. This is the political realities of today. You've heard me use the analogy. I think we're in a political revolution as we speak. I think the referendum lost because it was a bad referendum, poorly planned, trying to be executed by people the public don't trust. But I think it lost 75-25 because there's a political discontent and disenchantment amongst people all over this country that were willing to elect a reality TV show and New York City billionaire. That's what we're dealing with. And some people are blinded by it. Some people believe that you can hang around the country clubs and the supper clubs and get a true sentiment or a true reflection of what people are thinking. I don't. So let's go down the road of consolidation. Let's be more effective and efficient in the way we manage tax dollars in educating our young people. And let's do this together. And let's figure out a way to bring some competition. If some wealthy guy's listening, let's start a charter school. Let's bring competition to the market. You want to leave a legacy? And you've got some financial resources, some time, abilities, and talent? Let's create competition with West Florence. Not just a private school. Let's create competition with South Florence. Let's create competition with Wilson. Let's be open to that idea. Let's not let the American Federation of Teachers or the National Education Association give $300 million to Democrats to shut down competition and continue to monopolize education. Let's do that. Let's have radical reform to something that we've spent an enormous amount of money on and not gotten the bang for our buck that we deserve to get. That's why people voted no. They didn't believe if they gave the school district $198 million that they were going to make wise investments with that money. And if you take that personal, that's your problem. I'm just explaining the politics of it. And once again, I don't know how to run a school district. I have no idea what it takes day by day by day to run a big school district with 22 or 3 or 4 or 500 employees. I do know the politicking of it. And it's obvious you failed miserably yesterday. As I said earlier, and I'll say it again, I would never question the constitutional authority that our school board has to run that school board today, tomorrow, and the next. I do, beyond a shadow of a doubt, question the moral authority they have to run this school district, because the results came in yesterday and the public just flat out doesn't trust you. That's your problem, not mine. And I didn't tell anybody what they should do. I said if I were a school board member and I worked for 2 years on a referendum that was going to include the largest tax increase in the history of this county, and it got voted down as resoundingly as it did yesterday, I'd resign this morning. Because I know people have no faith in me. They showed that loudly and clearly yesterday. We don't have confidence in your ability to run this school district, to the point that 13,136 people, or 75%, said no. That's a beatdown, Rev. And there's got to be some responsibility that comes along with a 2-year prepared plan that fails that miserably.